will begin in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening. I'm glad to welcome all of my fellow board members and call the October 24th, 2017 school board meeting to order. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to thank all of you who are in attendance with us in person or watching the meeting from another location for investing your time and energy to join us. We appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. While the board and Brevard Public School staff members are fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools, we know that our success depends heavily on an engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us to continually improve. Thank you for being active participants in the process. Pam, roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Deskovich?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
And Mr. Ziegler?
Here.
Please join me for a moment of silence as we mourn the loss of a member of our BPS family, Michael Proctor, a 10th grade student from Melbourne High School. Thank you. This evening, Dr. Mark Mullins, our Chief Operating Officer, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. At this time, I would like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Blackburn the opportunity to recognize staff, students, or community members. Ms. Deskovich.
Ready. I have several tonight. I'll start with Mr. Elliott at Satellite High and all the public officials and the staff that put on our town hall there. It was almost 2 weeks ago now, but it was after the last school board meeting. So I just want to thank them for such a welcoming environment, and the students that from Mel High came over and cooked up a feast for us, which was wonderful. And the students from Satellite High were showcased in the arts and some other areas. And it was a moderately well-attended event, but it was very informative. Dr. Blackburn gave us a presentation on the status of the district, and I think overall it was a good evening. I want to thank, I think is it Janine Knight that put on the Student Leadership Council event. That was about a little over a week ago, and each secondary school sent 4 representatives, I believe, here, and they met in this room, and they spent the whole day discussing topics and breaking out in groups, discussing bullying, anxiety, depression, and suicide awareness, and they worked together to bring back ideas to their individual schools. I think it was a very productive day. They brought in Jamie from To Right Love on her arms, and he spoke and inspired them. And Mr. Hall was there from Melbourne High School, who has started the Mental Health Support Network at Melbourne High School, and his membership, I think, has grown to about 50 students, just in a club that's been going on for possibly 2 months. So there's a lot of good work being done within our district to help with mental health and with bullying issues that we are facing within our schools. A shout out to Brevard Family Partnership. This weekend, Dr. Blackburn and some of your board participated in a fundraising event there for raising funds for children in our community that are in the foster care system. And we did not win the competition, but we had a good time. We had a good time working together and working hard to raise funds for that organization. I want to give a shout out to Kevin Thornton and Dawn Menz. She is our dietitian, and Kevin Thornton is the gentleman that's over all of our food services. They invited me Friday to go on a tour of our cafeterias. And we visited 4 schools, and I sampled food all day long in our cafeterias. I learned a bunch about what they're doing at each individual school, with food choices and food selections. In our elementary schools, I learned they have 9 choices, at least at Port Malabar Elementary, where we went first. And I was pleasantly surprised to see the children all along the first table we looked at choosing salads as their side item, choosing fruit as their side item, and not always choosing maybe the less healthier option. They also presented me, I was excited because I've been working with him on maybe getting more healthy choices in some of our schools, and they presented me with some new potential items for the menu with pita bread and hummus and some things, and so I'm really excited about what we're going to be seeing in our cafeterias in the near future. So look out for that stuff. Also at Port Malabar Elementary School, we had JA Day, where Junior Achievement, Northrop Grumman brought in, I think, 36 employees, engineers, brought them in, and they took over the classroom along with the teacher for the day, and they taught 6 weeks of JA programs all in one full day. And I popped into classrooms all day long, and the kids were up doing activities, building communities, doing different things that Junior Achievement teaches. And so shout out to Northrop Grumman for providing us with those employees for a full day, and for Junior Achievement for their amazing program. And last, I'm going to give a shout out to my own son's teacher, Miss Etherton at Indiana Elementary School. We had conferences last night, and for the first time, I've been a parent in our schools for many, many years. She had, he's in 4th grade, and they did student-led conferences. She had no part. She oversaw from the back, and your student brought you in. And he went through all of his grades, all of his books that he's working in, the curriculum. He went through the list of standards and checked off what they've learned so far and what standards they still have to meet. It was very impressive, and he took a great ownership in his education. And so Ms. Atherton's doing a great job. And I know that was a long list, but I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. I think one of the greatest things that we've started since Dr. Blackburn got here is the push for school board members and the superintendent to push out into our schools and sit down with the principals for a short time, but then spend a whole bunch of time in the teacher lounge just listening. Last week, Dr. Blackburn and I had a whirlwind tour over a couple days. We went to McNair, Saturn, Audubon, Merritt Island High School, Lewis Carroll, Cape View, and Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High School. And it was fast-paced. It was awesome. We both took just pages of notes. I think the 3 things that I pulled out of it the most, just from our discussions, were that the leadership in those schools, both at the administrative level and at the teacher and staff level, is just amazing. Leadership not only of the organization or of the school itself, but in leadership display to our students. And the authenticity of the responses and the ability for the folks to give us just candid, down-to-earth responses and share their concerns, no matter what the topic, was fantastic. Great open discussion. And probably the best thing was it was nearly all solution-based. So people came armed with solutions, ideas, concepts, things that we could actually take back with us and start discussing and figuring out how we can make better changes and improve our district. So thanks to all the principals, all the staff and teachers that joined us in each of those schools, and thank you, Dr. Blackburn, for continuing to make that a priority for the board to push out into those schools for that. I think it's really important. I was able to attend something really cool, and I bring it up, and some people may know about it, but I guarantee you most people don't, unless you're associated with our JROTC programs. Our JROTC programs participate in a thing called Raider. It's a competitive event that is through the ROTC program, but outside of it, so more of an extracurricular activity. The kids that join the Raider teams consistently show up to school 6:15 in the morning most every day, and go through in a variety of physical workout regimens to get ready for their competition. And then when they do have their competitions, it's pretty impressive. Astronaut High School is where I got to go see one at 6 a.m. There is 36 teams out there on a football field, all in formation. They play reveille, and they start working on their events, all including first aid, a team 5K run, 300-pound tire flips, rope bridge building, combat carry over rough terrain, kettlebell shuttle runs, and then a pull-up challenge. And it's all been done by team, either all male, all female, or mixed teams. Just an amazing amount of effort goes into the planning of it, and the kids' dedication is just incredible. It really, I wrote down on my paper that it gave me goosebumps, because it really did. To watch, I remember the Rockledge team running by, and there was a young man who was obviously leading as they were doing their 5K run, and one of their team members, who was right near the end, was just having a hard time keeping up with the rest of the team, and they have to follow and complete as a team. And this young man was just encouraging his teammate that we will not leave you behind. You will come with us. We will finish this together. And it was just a great way to see how our young men and women are learning leadership, perseverance, and teamwork. And I just want to thank all of our ROTC instructors, our business partners that contribute to make those events happen and come out and judge them. And there, I was able to talk to Scott Wagner, who is the head of ROTC at Merritt Island High School. And he was just informed that, just had gotten notice that Merritt Island came out for this last year, #1 in the state for the number of Army ROTC scholarships that were delivered, and they are 12th in the nation. Not to be outdone by Vieira, who's #5 in the state. So pretty impressive that we are pushing people into scholarships and getting them access to college through that venue. And lastly, I would like to have all of us recognize Jeff Arnott, who is our head of adult education. Jeff was nominated by CareerSource Brevard and was now awarded the State of Florida Workforce Partner of the Year, and he picked that up today. And so, Jeff, congratulations on all you're doing. I think he's here. There he is over there. And thank you for continuing. Thank you for the impact you're making in our community and throughout the state.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Mr. Ziegler.
Thank you. Yesterday I had the pleasure of visiting Central Middle School to observe a presentation by a gentleman by the name of Jared Blake, who's a musician. He speaks on making good choices, and he speaks about, he's one of these guys that he was doing really well. He was on many seasons of The Voice. He fell from grace because of bad choices. He's now had to build himself back up. He still plays with some major artists. He plays with a band. He was in Daytona for Biketoberfest, and when he's traveling around doing his performances, he looks for schools. He has a foundation that covers all of his expenses to be able to set up and to speak to students. So yesterday he spoke to the 7th graders at Central Middle School about making good choices and having confidence in themselves, which is part of the message I know this board wants to work on, part of suicide prevention and anti-bullying and all of that kind of stuff. It was great to see that. Thank you to Jared Blake and to the principal, Mr. Potter, for having the vision to bring somebody into the school to speak to their students. Also like to thank again, we hear this a lot, I'd like to thank Glenn Outlaw and his team for doing his Tied Together program at Cocoa High, which was that a week ago, John? John Craig was there with me. Thank you for coming out. And it's a great program where we assemble the boys in the gymnasium, talk to them about making good choices, and we have elected officials, we have military personnel, we have police chiefs, we have business leaders that talk about their history and about some of the bad choices they made. We then bring them down, divide them up with all of these gentlemen, give them some of them their first tie for the first time, teach them how to tie the tie, teach them how to shake their hands, look somebody in the eye, introduce themselves with confidence, and then when they get back into the stand, speak to them a little bit more. Great program, phenomenal impact in one period to impact those boys. Our goal is somehow to expand this program, the Tied Together program, across all our schools. Believe it or not, the challenge is not money for the tithe. The challenge is finding gentlemen to volunteer in the middle of a business day to come work with these students. And so anybody interested, and here's my voice, feel free to email me if you're interested in being part of this group. We want to expand our email list. So when we ask for volunteers, we have 25 volunteers promptly. We're going to Palm Bay High School this Friday, and I know we're still short on volunteers. That's how difficult it is, and I believe our list is probably up to over 50 people, maybe more, that we email. We should have a response instantly for volunteers to help these boys understand making good decisions and learn how to be gentlemen. So thank you to Glenn Outlaw and to John and all the other volunteers that come out to help the students in our school.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Mr. Susan.
First off, I want to say how proud I am to be up here on this board with you guys, because looking at how you guys are so involved in all of the schools, I was on the other side of this for 9 years, and I've seen many boards come and go, and I've never seen anybody give this type of in being this involved into our schools. And I just want to say that it's an amazing thing coming from over there and coming here and seeing that. So I wanted to say thank you. I also want to say if Miss Andrea Young, our West Melbourne City Councilwoman, would please stand up and be recognized. We show all of our elected officials here. Give her a round of applause for being here tonight. Thank you. I also wanted to say that on October 13th was the first official preseason drone racing classic. Kids from 9 different schools, over 400 kids came to the Space Coast Tech Council, Tech Expo, and raced drones. They're the little ones that fly around. You can basically run them into people's heads and they won't hurt anything. They actually built them out of 3D printing, built the propellers, and then put them all together and raced them. That's part of what we're getting ready to do, which is on November 17th at Northrop Grumman, begin the Innovation Games, which is 3D printing the drone racing, and then 3D printing innovation programs. The Office of Naval Research is coming in with Sea Perch. Embry-Riddle's coming in with dual enrollment, classroom stuff, and dealing with some of the safety issues. We have so many components that are being kicked off. Northrop Grumman's thrown a bunch of money, a bunch of engineers to volunteer for it. It is phenomenal. And then we just met with the Melbourne Air Show, which is going to host the Innovation Games, and they're more excited than I think I am. So this is just going to be a great thing, and I wanted to say thank you to them for that. I also wanted to say thank you to Dave Lindeman, Sue Hahn, and Dane Theodore. They have a thing called the Capital Outlay Committee, where all of the city managers from the entire county come sit down and talk about our capacity issues and our construction. That's the first time that we've been putting that together, and it's a phenomenal group to just see that collaboration between the groups, all of our cities. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the county. I also want to say thank you to Ms. Deskovich for making us all dress up and be the Twisted Sister and say we're not going to take it in front of all those people. I was a little upset that we did not place, and I think that we know why. We'll do a better job next year, and we'll make sure that a specific judge is not in the crowd. And then we will, I just wanted to say better luck next year with us. And then I wanted to say that on Thursday, we get in front of 186 manufacturers that are going to start to prepare, manufacturers and construction workers are going to start preparing the apprenticeship back end for a STAR program that Dr. Thetty has begun to start putting together with some of the staff, so that this summer we can put, hopefully, close to 300 kids into manufacturing, construction, and aviation internships that are paid for by the federal government. So we don't have any money that we need to expense towards that. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Dr. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Belford. I want to start out by thanking several groups and organizations for having me out to speak with them and sharing ideas with me that I will come back and will share with the board and the rest of the community. Titusville Chamber of Commerce on October 11th had another great town hall meeting at Satellite High School on October the 12th. I believe our last town hall meeting is scheduled for November 2nd, Titusville High School. Looking forward to that. The Brevard, managers of Brevard Zoo assembled together, and many of them are parents in our schools, and so I was able to learn more about the zoo and have them share with me their parental perspective. Had a great time with the Northrop Grumman Retiree Club on October 18th, so shout out to them. Maybe 100 of them in the room. Very few have children or even grandchildren in our schools, but I will tell you they are very, very dialed in and connected to what we are doing. And so great to have their input. On that same day, I met with all of the student government, either presidents or vice presidents from each of our high schools, and they take me to school every time we are together. And then last but not least, last Thursday evening, I believe it was, I attended a principal's tea at Gulfview Elementary School. Community came out, a lot of staff members were there. The future is very, very bright at Gulfview Elementary School, so I really appreciate that invitation and being able to listen to them. Parenting in Today's World, a cooperative effort between Student Services and Leading and Learning, was held on Saturday, October 14th here at ESF. Not only did participants hear from a variety of speakers on topics that included anxiety, depression, social media, they were also treated to a continental breakfast from the Cocoa High culinary class. So thank you for that effort. Two more, very, very happy to announce that employees who worked during Hurricane Irma should have received their hurricane pay today. Approximately 3 weeks earlier than you were compensated last year from Matthew, and that actually impacted over 900 employees worked during the hurricane to provide services to our community. And last but not least, as we wrap up the month of October, we also wrap up Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and several of us in the community are participating in Real Men Wear Pink, raising funds for a very worthwhile cause. So keep all those individuals and their families who are fighting the good fight against that nasty disease in your hearts and minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. I will start with a huge thank you to Suhan and Dave Lindeman. Joined them for the meeting at Enterprise Elementary School, discussing students being moved from Fairglen to Enterprise to address some of the capacity issues at Fairglen, and want to thank them for the grace with which they handled that meeting, because it was a tough one as far as some of the challenges that the parents expressed in getting their children to Enterprise. So definitely want to thank them for listening and taking that information in, and want to assure the community that as you all are bringing forward concerns about these boundary changes, we certainly are taking them to heart and listening to your concerns as we move forward. But I also want to thank the families that came out to that meeting, because their voice is so critically important to the way that we move forward. So many thanks to them. Although I wasn't able to join them for this particular meeting, there is a group that has formed primarily in the north end, but has pulls people from throughout the county, called the Youth Mental Health Task Force. And would like to thank them for the work that they're doing. Several of our staff members have participated. Dr. Theddy, Janine Knight, numerous staff members have been joining them, and I won't go through the whole list. But that group has been working feverishly on trying to address some of the youth mental health issues that we seem to be facing in Brevard County. Currently working on a media campaign to try to raise awareness, because we really have been having some very serious struggles and trying to figure out the right recipe to address it all. So many thanks to them for the work that they're doing. If you are interested in being a part of that conversation, by all means, reach out to me and I can help connect you, or you can reach out to Dr. Theddy, but great stuff going on there. Also want to say a huge thank you. One of my absolute favorite events of the year is the Very Special Arts performance, which takes place. This year it took place at the King Center, and they are typically at the King Center, but if you've ever been, they're usually in the smaller theater around back, and this year they performed on the big stage, which was really awesome to see. That is a partnership between many of our schools and the Brevard Achievement Center and Brevard Cultural Alliance, I think, supports via visiting artists, and a phenomenal opportunity to see our students get up on stage and perform. They are from our special needs classes, and we had Madison, astronaut, trying to think, O'Galley was there. Who am I forgetting, Dr. Blackburn? Do you remember? Because you were with me at that event. Space Coast was there. Vieira was there, yes. In fact, the MC was from Vieira, and what an absolute hoot he was. If you can walk away from that event and not be smiling, there's something wrong with you. So I encourage you all, if you have the opportunity to attend, to go. It really is a great event. Also had the opportunity to join Astronaut High School for their homecoming parade, and certainly want to thank Principal Krista Miller and all of the staff at Astronaut for all of their hard work in putting that together. Great opportunity to see the community come out in support of our schools. I think I threw out, our parade route was just under a mile, and I think I threw out 400 lollipops and probably 100 dog cookies along the way. But great time to come together and show the community spirit. So many thanks to them for all of that. I also want to say some thank yous for the Brevard Family Partnership event, but I want to thank a couple of specific individuals. Pam, who helped us to prepare for our event, both with coordination and encouragement and ensuring that we had the things that we needed and were coordinated to get there. Also, Tammy, Dr. Blackburn's assistant, volunteered her time to assist us with costuming. And Jean Ann, who I don't see in the room right now, but hopefully she'll get word that we're giving her a shout out, who also helped us both with lighting, volunteering at the event, and encouraging us through our rehearsals. So, and last but not least, I have to thank Dr. Mark Mullins, who graciously stepped in to fill Mr. Craig's shoes since he could not join us, and did a phenomenal job both in helping us to get equipment together and also in performing at the event with us. So thank you, Dr. Mullins, for all of your work there. I think we did a good thing. Not only did we have fun, and I think we did a fairly good job on our performance, but we also raised Ms. Deskovich, I think, $5,200 for a Brevard Family Partnership for foster children in our community. So many thanks to all. And I believe that is all I have for recognition this evening. Is there any board member that would like to throw in something they forgot? All right, then that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 1 proclamation, 17 consent items, 5 action items, one of which is a public hearing on policy 5517.01 on bullying and harassment, and 2 information items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. There were revisions to item A7 on administrative staff recommendations. Revisions were also made to item F14 on instructional staff recommendations and item G28 on purchasing solicitations. Consent item F17 on involuntary termination of employee and action item G30 on the termination of campus charter school contract was an addition.
What are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Craig, seconded by Mr. Susan to approve the agenda for October 24th, 2017. Is there any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Absolutely, Mrs. Belford. There are 4 administrative staff members for the board to consider this evening.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Mr. Susan to approve the administrative staff recommendations. Is there any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, at this time, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and recognize Sherry Tomlinson on her reclassification from principal at Madison Middle School to the principal at Kennedy Middle School. Mrs. Tomlinson.
Thank you. Thank you, the school board and Dr. Blackburn and Dr. Sullivan for this opportunity. Thank you to my other half, Russell, who always supports me in everything. It's going to be hard for me to walk away from Madison. It's had my heart for many years, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be able to go back to my childhood school and become a Kennedy Panther again. Thank you to Richard Myers, who is here and is leaving such a legacy there. And so I have big shoes to fill. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve the community in which I live.
And next, congratulations to Mr. Matthew Mertz on his reclassification from the position of Guidance Service Professional at Madison Middle School to the position of 10-month Assistant Principal at Madison Middle School. Mr. Mertz.
Thank you. I want to first thank the board, Dr. Blackburn, Dr. Sullivan, Barbara Rodriguez, Sherry Bowman, and then my wonderful administrative staff at Madison, Ms. Sherry Tomlinson and Ms. Rebecca Tagey. Lastly, I want to thank my family, my friends, and my colleagues. Thank you for supporting me through all these years. It's been a productive struggle. I look forward to working at Madison and continuing my journey there and working in the North area. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our proclamation. Dr. Blackburn.
Our proclamation this evening is to endorse Lights On After School proclamation. The Lights On After School proclamation. Dr. Mullins will read it for us. Dr. Mullins.
Keeping the lights on after school. Whereas Brevard Public Schools, Office of Adult and Community Education, Department of Brevard After School, stands firmly committed to quality after-school programs and opportunities because they provide safe, challenging, and engaging learning experiences that help children develop social, emotional, and physical and academic skills. They support working families by ensuring their children are safe and productive after the regular school day ends. They build stronger communities by involving students, parents, business leaders, and adult volunteers in the lives of young people, thereby promoting positive relationships among youth, families, and adults. And they engage families, schools, and community partners in advancing the welfare of our children. Whereas Brevard After School has provided significant leadership in the area of community involvement in the education and well-being of our youth, grounded in the principle that quality after-school programs are key to helping our children become successful adults. Whereas Lights On After School, the national celebration of after-school programs to be held on October 26, 2017, promotes the importance of quality after-school programs in the lives of children, families, and communities. Whereas more than 28 million children in the U.S. have parents who work outside the home, and 15.1 million children have no place to go after school. And whereas many after-school programs across the country are facing funding shortfalls so severe that they are being forced to close their doors and turn off their lights. Therefore, be it resolved that Brevard Public Schools urges the citizens of Brevard County to ensure that every child has access to a safe, engaging place where the lights are on after school. And be it further resolved that board members and staff of Brevard Public Schools enthusiastically endorse Lights On After School and are committed to innovative after-school programs and activities that ensure that the lights stay on and the doors stay open for all children after school.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Mr. Susan to approve the proclamation. Is there any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. We are now at the public comment portion of our board meeting. The maximum allotted time for each speaker is 3 minutes. Please be reminded that statements shall be directed to the board chairperson. No person may address or question board members individually. The board chairperson may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. If an individual does not observe reasonable decorum, the board chairperson may request that individual leave the meeting. Please keep in mind that we often have children present and/or children viewing our board meetings, and we encourage an environment appropriate for their viewing. While no action will be taken this evening by the board on items raised in public discussion, board members may assist with connecting public speakers to district staff that can assist with concerns, respond in brief to comments made by speakers that require immediate clarification, request that a response to specific speakers be placed on the school board's website under the section called For the Record. These responses will take place at the end of the public comment portion of the meeting. I request that you speak into the microphone and state your name. We have, do you have the summary sheet, Pam? Just give me a number. We have 22 speakers scheduled for this evening, so I will call speakers up. I will call the names in groups of 3, so you can kind of be on deck and ready to approach when the speaker prior to finishes, just to help speed the process, because we want to make sure we have ample time to hear all of your comments. So our first 3 speakers in order are Dennis Robbins, Michael Browd, and Michelle Olinger. Dennis, if you would please approach.
My name is Dennis Robbins. I'm a 22-year veteran teacher. Most of my time has been spent in the classroom, so I'm speaking from that perspective. I'm a PE teacher now, and all of those years have been at the same school, Ocean Breeze Elementary. First, I'd like to say, Dr. Blackburn and Mrs. Descovich, when you guys came, it was great to see the feedback. You actually wrote something down, and action was taken, and that was the first time in my career I felt that the school board took action on something that I felt strongly about. So thank you for doing what you did. My wife and I served 18 years active duty in the Air Force, and after we got out, actually, as I was sitting in my tent during the first Gulf War, I realized I wanted to become a teacher. I felt it was a noble profession. So I worked hard and got my degree. My wife got out after I did, and my starting teacher pay was $24,000 a year. My first year, my principal came to me and said, I need a $1,200 check, the district does, from you to cover your insurance for the summer, since you're an annual contract teacher. And I told him, I don't have it, you know, it's not even open for discussion. I don't have that money. And so he said, what are you gonna do? And I literally, my family will tell you this, I went home and I told him, I said, I'd tell my kids to lay down for the summer in the air conditioning so you don't get hurt and you don't get sick, because we didn't have insurance. It took me 10 years to pay off my teacher loans. And that was because I could only make the minimum payment. I actually applied for and received reduced lunches for my children after being urged by the bookkeeper to do it because I would qualify and they knew we were struggling. I missed the steps, and this has nothing to do with you guys, but the previous board, previous superintendent, froze us when I would have made my biggest pay increases in my career. And I missed those steps, and of course we don't have them anymore. My daughter, as much as I didn't want her to go into education, and I'm ashamed to say that, because I think it's a great career, she chose to become a speech language pathologist, and she's worked for the school board now for 4 years. She lives with me so that she doesn't, if I can give her the one step up, so that she doesn't have to go into any more debt than she already is. One of my dear friends just quit teaching last year after teaching for 20 years. He's one of the best reading teachers in the elementary school. He quit because he was so frustrated with what he felt was a lack of respect and the lack of pay. He makes more money on eBay right now than he did as a teacher. And it's very frustrating with social
Mr.
media.
Robbins, I'm
Am I
sorry
done?
to interrupt you, but
Thank
your
you.
3 minutes are up. Thank you so much for your service, sir. Michael Browd.
Thank you for seeing me tonight. My name is Michael Browd, and I'm an automotive teacher at Heritage High School. I'm the 2016 Teacher of the Year and 4-time nominee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm an automotive technician and engineer by trade, but in 2007, at the beginning of my career as a teacher, I was told by my mentor that being a teacher was relentless preparation. I think that that is the understatement of the century. For the last 10 years, I've been doing exactly that, relentlessly preparing. My day starts at about 4:30 a.m. Just like a lot of my colleagues, I read every email. I catch up with students and colleagues, parents that email me. We as teachers, when we come to school, we have a smile that all the kids can see for a mile. We greet them at the door with fist bumps and handshakes, high fives and elbows. We tell them, I'm so glad you made it. I'm happy to see you. Man, you guys are looking good today. I think you're going to have a great day. We instantly become the best part of their day. I've built my program from the ground up. I've gone to state conferences. I have wrote the test questions. I have wrote the curriculum. I have wrote textbooks. All these kids test from the things that I have done for this community. I go to the dealerships. I go to the businesses. I solidify this program as a great community resource for young people to get their start in the field. My students walk across the graduation stage and in a lot of cases already have a job out in the field in the automotive community. I have parents that call me and thank me for inspiring their kid who never showed any kind of direction. Thank you, Mr. Browd. By the way, what's this automotive college my kid keeps telling me about? You won't leave me alone. We feed them, we mentor them, we inspire greatness. We go to their games, we celebrate their wins, and we console their losses. We have gone to their weddings, we have held their babies, and sadly, we've gone to their funerals. We discipline them, we push them out of their comfort zone daily as we walk them to the doorway of adulthood. We relentlessly prepare students to become agile thinkers, problem solvers, creative thinkers, relentlessly preparing them not only to enter the workforce, but to think and act as informed citizens of our community. Personally, I've done this for 10 years without calling off. I've worked sick, tired, and sore, just like many of my colleagues. We have more than held up our end of the bargain. Now it's your turn. We ask that you have done this without job security. Personally, I've drove 90 miles a day. I couldn't afford to live in the community that I teach in. I'm so grateful to be here now, but now that I am here, I can hardly afford to do much else. Family trips and vacations, virtually non-existent. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if most of us teachers can continue to pay the price for your financial decisions. Being a public educator is the most responsible form of citizenship. And yet Florida teachers, the 47th worst paid state in the union. This is not our job. It is our careers. Do the right thing and say thank you with the financial respect we deserve.
Mr. Browd, I hate to interrupt, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you so much for your service, sir. Michelle, as you approach, I'm just going to quickly call out our next three, okay, as you get ready. Our next three are Brian Wilkins, Anthony Colucci, and Kara Matthews, if you all could get ready.
I'm a little short, so I'll stand on my tiptoes. My name is Michelle Olinger. I'm a teacher at Indialantic Elementary, a 6th grade teacher. I would like you to consider one very important thing. There's a small percentage of Brevard's teachers here today, but you might think from those small numbers that the vast majority of teachers are perfectly content with the conditions we work for and the pay we are given. But you're forgetting that each one of us represents the teachers in Brevard schools. They come to us with their concerns, their tears, and their frustrations with the school board. Multiply that out. Those teachers have family and friends and neighbors that they talk to about the conditions in the schools. Those teachers brought you your 1/2 penny sales tax. I have to admit that goes under the fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you adage. That's right, yeah. I think you'll have to wait 30 to 50 years before teachers forget about that fiasco. Teachers helped you with that because we were promised that you would then have money to give us competitive salaries. We learned a hard lesson from that, didn't we? Teachers vote, and you don't seem to want to think about that. You may think because many teachers were too exhausted to be here tonight, most of them have already put in over 20 hours, or because some are not members of the union, that they're satisfied with the conditions and pay, but you'd be dead wrong. One of your predecessors learned about that. This was some years ago when the board was raking us over the coals about the insurance. He said it was so funny how many emails he had received from teachers about that. He thought the teachers' concerns and worries about the raising of our insurance premiums was funny. He's not here, though, is he? Like I said, teachers vote, and we will remember what you do to us this year. I've noticed that there was some smirking the last time teachers appeared here and shared their frustrations with you. Perhaps you think teachers having to work several jobs to make ends meet is comical. We must seem pretty stupid to work at a job where we're smirked at when we bare our souls to you and beg you for fair treatment and respect. You probably take us for fools as we work 40 to 60 hours a week to give our students the best that we can offer, often neglecting our other obligations because of our dedication to the kids we teach. But I wouldn't trade my position for yours for $1 million, because I have kids come back to me years later to share with me what they've done with their lives, bringing their children to meet the teacher who had such an influence on them. This is my last year as a teacher in Brevard County. I have felt privileged to teach the students that I've had in my classroom, but I did it for them, in spite of the working conditions and low pay. I can hold my head high when I leave because I've made a difference in the lives of many children. What will you be able to say when you're voted out or you leave the school board? I made life miserable for the many teachers who depended on me for fairness and respect. I'll take my future over yours.
Thank you, Michelle. Brian Wilkins.
Hi, my name is Brian Wilkins. I'm a parent. I actually grew up here. Believe it or not, Principal Myers was my former principal at Kennedy Middle School many years ago. Speaking of ROTC scholarships, I am also a product of the school system, of these great teachers behind us. I did get an Army ROTC scholarship. I went to Rockledge High School, and they're going FIT. I can see where these teachers are coming from, but that's not why I'm here today. Just wanted to recognize the great people behind me. I'm going to talk here about the boundary changes that are proposed that have been discussed the past several weeks. Right now, in my neighborhood, the current proposed boundaries until they fix it is currently splitting my neighborhood in two, where one side of the street goes to another school, another side of the street goes to another school. It doesn't really make much sense. That would cause 3 elementary school buses. One of them would be the Vera Charter School to come to our clubhouse. It also have a financial impact on our clubhouse if that were the case, where we'd have to increase our insurance on our HOA. We use our clubhouse because it's safer for the children, especially elementary school children, who, as you know, have a tendency to run in the street when not properly supervised. There's other things that should also be considered with the boundary changes. For instance, a large neighborhood next to me, Capricorn Ridge, which is, as we know, is much more dense in terms of children, which was surgically extracted from the changes, and they're actually much closer to Ralph Williams, where I'm currently slated to be scheduled for. There's other ideas, such as the Sunrise community, which is, some of them have volunteered to go to Suntree, or even there's 37 ELO students who are currently going to Quest. They're considered out of area, and that you could cut off half of the 95. They're going to be rezoned for Quest. As we know, there's going to be a financial impact. Studies have shown that when you go to a B school, Ralph Williams currently is a B school. I understand they missed it by a couple points. Quest is an A school, that there would be a financial impact on the homes in our neighborhood. The other thing is that there has to be, I would also recommend a policy change to move 6th grade back to middle school. Brevard County is one of 2 counties in the state that has 6th grade in the middle school area. The other thing I want to also consider is the building of a Viera middle school to also alleviate some of the congestion, or a K-8 school somewhere around the Pineda area. The other consideration is portables for Quest. I know there's already portables there, but that would also be an option, around $7,000 a piece. The other thing is that there is also a criteria for an emotional impact. There will also be an emotional impact for all children. So I'll also like you to consider and look at having a comprehensive plan, because it doesn't appear that we have a current comprehensive boundary plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Anthony Clucci.
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. Some of you used to be on this side of the dais with me. Do you remember how it drove us nuts when the board would manipulate information so it would appear more favorable to the district? Unfortunately, this board is going down the same road. It's manipulative to include a state bonus in your salary offer and frame it as a 4.1% pay jump. It is manipulative to not inform teachers and the public that hundreds of teachers are ineligible for the state bonus because eligibility is determined by the state using an archaic definition of teacher. There are 29 instructional positions currently advertised. You can't fill these positions. Of those 29 positions, 20 are re-advertisements. I see that you are advertising nationally for these positions. I'm wondering what your selling points are. Come work in beautiful Brevard County. You'll be pleased to know that in a state that averages 47th in the nation for teacher pay, your pay will trail behind the state average. Furthermore, your pay for performance raises won't even keep up with the rate of inflation. So come on down, folks. If you have a highly effective evaluation and you don't offend your principal, we may even hire you back next year. You don't have a plan to stop this teacher shortage. You refuse to hear from your teachers who are telling you that compensation is part of the problem. But most of all, I'm disappointed that this board does not have the courage to protect our AC teachers. Of all the school boards in Florida, this board should know better than all the others why it's important to protect our annual contract teachers. Because it was this school board that fired Harry and Harriet Moore from their teaching positions. You know they weren't fired because they were ineffective teachers. You know that folks did not do the right thing to make sure they kept their jobs. The half-page contract that teachers signed gave the school board complete discretion to terminate the contract altogether, or the board can simply not offer a contract the next year, and that's what this board did. This board knows what eliminating job security is about. You want compliance. You don't want folks up here questioning your decisions. You don't want teachers involved in politics. You want the power to send anyone you don't like packing. And so be it. If this board wants to continue the disturbing legacy of past boards, that's your decision, and history will judge you for that. But let me be clear. BFT will follow the example set forth by the Moores. The Brevard Federation of Teachers will continue to fight injustice every day. We will not give up on that. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
Thank you, Mr. Colucci. Kara Matthews, I am just going to call our next three before you get started real quick, okay? So next three are Amelia Hunter, Kelsey Waterbury, and Lauren Austin. Go ahead, Kara.
Good evening. My name is Kara Matthews, and I thank you for your time tonight. Dr. Blackburn, you may recall meeting me at Barnes & Noble last year. I was the recipient of the My Favorite Teacher contest. A former student of mine wrote a remarkable poem that qualified as the winner. In his poem, he gave me credit for inspiring him to be successful and stay motivated, and that I did it with humor, kindness, and dedication. I regret to inform you that I am no longer an inspirer of children, otherwise known as a teacher. I simply could no longer afford what my family and I jokingly referred to as my teaching hobby, since one couldn't possibly make a decent living doing it in this community. The additional stress that came from always having to stretch my last dollar no longer plagues me. The anxiety over how I was going to teach science to a population of children who mostly could not read with zero support from this district no longer keeps me awake at night. I now work somewhere where I am rewarded financially for being highly educated and hardworking, and I have to say, it's a great feeling. On that note, I implore you to stop sharing misleading information about the increased pay you have proposed. It is obvious that it is your intention to mislead the public into believing that teachers are refusing a 4% pay raise, which we all know is not true. I expect and I demand more from my community superintendent and school board. My second agenda this evening is about the proposed attendance boundary changes. I want you to keep households in School Zone 5 in their School Zone 5 schools. My husband graduated from Melbourne High School 19 years ago, and we now live in the home that he purchased from his parents. I saw all the new proposals, and it hardly seems fair that very old, well-established neighborhoods like Heald Road and Carriage Gate get the boot for anticipated growth along Norfolk Parkway and Minton Road. It's disheartening that my family and others get bumped for houses and families that don't even exist yet. When drawing your boundary maps, they don't have to be perfect squares and perfect rectangles. I would like you to consider squares and rectangles that are instead drawn with great care and compassion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kara.
Amelia Hunter, BFT. So tonight I stand here and I'm staring in the face of a grim reality that could be set before me. 1.5% raise to my salary, $615 a year, essentially $3 a day. As I prepared this week thinking about what I would say, I came to the realization that there's only really been one thing that hasn't been said, and that's thank you. Now, the teachers behind me may be wondering why I just thanked the board who approves 1.5% raise for us, but I think that they'll agree with me in just a minute. So first, thank you. It's because of you that I'm able to work 12 hours straight and get home and realize that I have a bladder of steel. My activity was at 11:40. Thank you. It is because of you that I realized once again I really don't need a new car. Thank you for teaching me math. In your lesson, 2 parts really almost equal a whole. But in a year, that whole, it'll equal only a half. But that's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, bonus, raise, bonus. And finally, now that I've expressed all that, I am super grateful for many things in my life, but I'm simply not grateful for the disrespect and mockery that was put out by the pay for BPS teachers could grow by 4%. Remember all those pet projects that have been approved and funded without a single solitary objection? I challenge you to do the right thing for teachers. Do the right thing and admit you were untrue to your promise of putting teachers first. Face us like the professionals that we are and stop playing the blame game and blaming Tallahassee. Tonight, a teacher's child goes hungry. Tonight, a teacher's child sleeps in a stranger's house because their parents can't afford the cost of living increases that have happened. Tonight, a teacher goes home exhausted. Actually, that was last night, 7:30 p.m., exhausted, neglecting themselves, neglecting their children, neglecting their animals, can't even get their laundry done. I urge you to do right by teachers. I urge you to speak truth and life into our communities rather than spreading misleading information. I leave you with a challenge. Come spend a week in our shoes. Walk the walk we do. Wake up at 4:45 each day. Arrive at work 6:30. Ride in our shaking, can only go 55 on 95 car, and only get paid and air conditioning from 7:30 to 3:30 every single day. Finally, thank you for helping us realize that we are in desperate need of new leadership in our district. Leadership that will hold true to their word and stand in the gap for teachers.
Thank you, Amelia. Kelsey?
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Waterbury. Do you want to switch it to green? I'm sorry. I don't want to get in trouble. So, good evening. I'm Kelsey Waterbury. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Lockmar Elementary. I spoke to you all a month ago, and I represented teachers who are not able to make it to the school board meeting. Tonight, I'm here representing myself and sharing my story. I think it is important that we're not just viewed and lumped together as angry teachers. We each have a story that is special and unique to each of us. I am a graduate of Rollins College in Winter Park. Chairperson Belford, I know you were an adjunct professor there, so I'm sure you know why I chose Rollins. I wanted to receive the best education I could possibly get, and I knew I needed a small class size to succeed. I had to graduate early with special permission from the president of the college because I was hired with Orange County Public Schools. He agreed, and so my teaching career began. I taught with Orange County for 4 years. I received highly effective evaluations each year, and I was also given raises that kept up with my cost of living. However, they did not have any annual contract job protection. I was at 3 different schools my 4 years I was there. I wasn't a good fit, or the trouble with kindergarten is they don't know how many students you're going to have the following year. During that time, I got married, and my husband's job was in Brevard County. I was tired of driving to Orange County every day to a temporary job. So I started in Brevard County, where right off the bat, I lost 4 years of my teaching experience and was classified as a new teacher. Back then, I was upset, but I didn't think about how much the county actually benefited from this. I was an experienced teacher, but the county was saving money because they didn't have to pay me for my years of experience because of past years' pay freezes. I've been at the same school now for 4 years. I'm constantly asked, how do I like Brevard compared to Orange? My answer is always the same. I love working in Brevard County. I have been working at the same school now for 4 years. I have a relationship with my parents and my community. I love being able to watch my students grow up. However, I would be making over $6,000 more if I was still in Orange County. If AC job protection is gone here in Brevard, and I get a new principal, I fear that history for me will repeat itself. And if that happens, what will be my reason for staying? Because it sure will not be the money.
Thank you, Kelsey. Lauren Austin, you're up next. And as you approach, I'm just going to call our next 3, okay? Vanessa Tress, Vanessa Skipper, and Dan Bennett. Whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Austin. I'm a teacher at Cocoa High School. I'm here tonight as a teacher, a counselor, and a mentor because teachers do more than educate our future leaders. We feed them, clothe them, high-five them, and sometimes we cry with them. How many of the children in Brevard County do you know? How many of them have you given your lunch while you went hungry? How many have you given your umbrella while you walked in the rain? How many students have you comforted while attending the funeral for one of their parents? How many words of courage have you offered a suicidal teen who said you are the reason she didn't do it? Or how many times have you held a parent's hand who lost a child who was a student in your class? I lost 8 students during my 10 years at Cocoa High School. I looked at empty seats that were once filled with hope and opportunity, and it broke my heart, but I had to stand strong for those who were still there. The teachers in Brevard County carry the triumphs and sorrows of the families we serve long after the students are gone. Many, including the legislators, have no idea what teaching really entails. No amount of money is ever enough to compensate us because our job doesn't end at 3:30. It doesn't end, period. We remain a part of our students' lives long after graduation. Our students are people, not test scores used to give the school board or superintendent clout in the community. A 1.5% raise doesn't cover the supplies we provide, the deductibles on our insurance, or the respect manipulative news stories cost us in the community. Many of our concerns are easy to ignore from that chair, or behind a computer, or when a letter is disregarded. In the classroom, there is nowhere for us to go, and we can't ignore questions that make us uncomfortable. We do the best we can. We are the adults they trust and depend on at that moment, and we better have the strength and ability to make lightning-fast decisions and set our own emotions aside. If we miss even the slightest clue, we risk losing them altogether. Only an educator understands what that level of responsibility feels like. Parents trust us with their children every day, and when there are 30 children in a classroom, each one must believe he or she is the teacher's #1 priority. Parents don't want to read public relations emails that infer that teachers are whiny and greedy. Those stories minimize our value in the eyes of the families we serve. How much are we expected to sacrifice before we are respected as professionals? Educators make all other professions possible. When was the last time any of you served students in the classroom, if ever? I want to extend an invitation to each of you to spend a day teaching my classes at Cocoa High School so you can match faces to the numbers you crunch and recognize our students and teachers as people. I look forward to hearing from you soon to make that opportunity a reality.
Thank you, Lauren. Vanessa Tress.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Tress. I'm a single mom, been teaching for 13 years, and until last Friday, I was the head volleyball coach at Cocoa High School. I'm here to share a grave concern I have with where Brevard County places its values on teachers, coaches, and sponsors. Anyone who teaches or coaches doesn't get into the career to get rich. We share a passion and a love for students and athletes that is not comprehensible to people outside this field, but we too deserve to live comfortably. I have been a teacher and coach in Brevard County since January 2013. I took on a struggling volleyball program and in 5 years have developed a program with its first winning record, developed relationships with over 26 community businesses, fed every player a pregame meal at a school where 73% of our students are on free or reduced lunches, traveled out of state for competition, and in less than a year raised close to $15,000 in 2017. 2 weeks ago, I was preparing for my volleyball senior night. I informed my administration that I would be leaving 45 minutes early so I could pick up balloons, pregame meals, and gifts, and that my IA would be taking care of my class. This is not unusual because coaches leave early throughout the season. I was informed shortly after that if I left, I would be charged sick leave because, and I quote, "You are paid a stipend and you should have taken care of that on your own time." 2 years ago, I divided my volleyball hours by my stipend. I still remember the wage. It was 56 cents an hour. Needless to say, I left and took sick leave. My classes are not being affected negatively due to my absences. I've been a high-impact teacher. My VAMP scores are among the highest, and last year, I was nominated and chosen as a Teacher of the Year district finalist. The passion I have for my program is comparable and level with the passion and love I have for my students' education. I feel Brevard County is losing focus of the bigger picture when we begin to nickel and dime teachers and coaches that selflessly give up their time because of red tape and rules. We overlook the underlining most important part of what they do. When you spend our education budget on everything but your teachers, you devalue and demoralize the people who love your children. I ask you, would you want a coach or a teacher that loves your child, or one that clocks out at 3:30? It's okay, I'm done. I know it's regret. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Vanessa Skipper. I am a teacher at Cocoa High School, and I want to pose a question because you guys have heard me speak at most every single board meeting, and I have started to feel kind of like a talking head because I don't know if you are listening to pacify or if you're hearing to act. And I'm sorry because the teachers behind me are the teachers I represent in the role that I play as second vice president of Brevard Federation of Teachers. This profession is my passion, and 4 or 5 years ago, when I really started to get involved in union activism, one of my main reasons was for job protections for AC teachers. And I'm going to say, I will not give up on trying to get job protection for my colleagues, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And a few years ago, when somebody decided to write nasty legislation to try to take job security away from teachers, the district worked hand in hand with us to come up with a creative solution. But yet, sitting across the bargaining table with a team of people that I have passionately worked to get on the board because I believed in your passion for teachers and education, wouldn't agree to give job security to my colleagues. I have job security. I have a professional services contract. This is my 12th year in the district, but I'll never, ever forget that feeling when I got bumped from Jackson Middle School. And when I was given the opportunity to teach at Cocoa High School by Dr. Sullivan, I said, I'm putting my roots down, and I am here. And it is my 9th year at Cocoa High School, and I have brothers, and I have sisters. And when I pick up the phone to call, I had a parent the other day. Yeah, he's not so-and-so. Nope, he's not. Let's talk. I already have the relationship with teachers. And when we refuse to work within the law, which can be done because another district just last night settled on the very same language that we did, we can do it. You can protect annual contract teachers. You can give them a reason to stay in our county. Almost half of your workforce is considered annual contract. So I'm asking you, please don't just listen to me to pacify. Please understand that when I come here on school board meetings, it's not because I just taught all day and I thought, what more fun could I have? It is because I am legit speaking up for the teachers behind me, and I always will. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Dan, as you approach, I'm just going to call our next three. Yeah, just give it to Pam. Thank you. Michelle Fichter, Ginger Powell, and Darcy Halloran.
Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, Dr. Blackburn. Don't worry, the speeches will be done soon. I think I'm number 12 out of 20 some. So this portion will be done and you'll get to go on with the rest of the agenda. But I want to give you some assignments for after we're done, after the board meeting's over. And the first assignment, supposed to be facing Misty, the first assignment is going to be to reflect on what you heard. Let's not make this a contest of can we let it roll off our backs like water and just be confident, say we did the right thing. Reflect on what you heard and go back into your own histories and think about why you got onto this board. And remember those promises that you made when you were running for board, that among the many things you were going to do, you were going to make this profession better for the people that were in it. Dr. Blackburn, you and I have a little bit in common. We were both math teachers at one time who left the classroom. Before that, we were both students at Norman Hall who chose this profession. And somewhere along the line, we said, we're going to make this profession not suck for the people who are in it. And y'all have the opportunity to make this place a little bit better. I'm going to give you another assignment, a little more concrete than what I just told you to do, which is a DBQ. Do you know what a DBQ is? Yeah, document-based question, where you look at 4 primary sources, you draw a conclusion, and you report out on what you learned. The 4 sources I want you to look at, I just handed Pam a copy of the recent law that passed. It's just one page. It's like a 300-page bill. But there's the one page that talks about annual contract reappointments, and it says that we can't have anything in the contract that takes your authority, your final authority, your constitutional authority, to grant contracts. And it turns out our current contract, well, it doesn't match the law, so we had to fix it somehow. So the first thing I want you to do is take a look at the paragraph. It's underlined, top half of the paper, and you'll find out that all we have to do is make sure I don't take your final authority away. And then I want you to call up HR and ask them for a copy of our contract language that we put across the table, and you'll see that our contract language matches the law just fine. And then the third thing I want you to look at is look at the settlement that was settled on last night at the bargaining table in Miami-Dade, where they got virtually the same contract language that I put across the table, and they're bragging and they're proud of themselves, as they should be in Miami-Dade, saying that they're leaders in the state for protecting their annual contract teachers. And after you look at those 3 documents, one's a video and 2 are the things to read, then you go back and you ask yourself, so why can't we do that in Brevard County? And then you have to do a little bit of research. You have to go to your own YouTube channel and go to a bargaining session from July 27th, 2016. It's only 2 hours and 23 minutes, but don't worry. I'll tell you what's key in on. Right around 2 hours into it, I just saved you 2 hours. Right around 2 hours into it, you're going to see discussion of, we're talking about annual contract teachers and trying to get some protections for pregnant teachers and teachers on leave. And you're going to find out that the board Sir, excuse me, not the board, people on the district team, I won't call anyone out, you can go back and watch the session. It's the person who's doing email for 2 hours before this comes up. But someone on the district bargaining team was against AC job security. New people in the district HR office were showing back then a disdain for AC job security. And I'll tell you, that's where the attitude is coming from. It's not coming from the law. Don't lie to us and say that our language doesn't meet the law. You can do the right thing, and you can protect annual contract teachers.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
your
Bennett.
assignment. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
My name is Michelle Fichter, third grade teacher at Columbia Elementary, annual contract teacher. I've been teaching with Brevard County for 6 years now. This is my 9th year teaching, though. I'm passionate about what I do. I love my job. And I'll go the extra mile for my students, staff, and school. I have 19 kids who are mine from 7:45 to 2:30 every day. They depend on me, and if I'm honest, I depend on them. Sorry. These kids deserve 110% from me every day. For most of them, these kids, they're with me more than they're with their parents. My work hours are 7:15 to 3:15. However, that's a joke. I don't know of any teacher who works only during their hours. Every evening from 7 p.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., I work. Every weekend, I'm working. Teaching is one of the only professions that I know of where you don't leave your work at the door. This has to be done in order to ensure that my 19 students, who are mine, will have the best possible education that I can provide them. However, I'm not just a teacher. I'm a wife and a mother. I have a family who depends on me. Not only do they depend on me monetarily, they also depend on me to give them 110% all the time. When my son, who is almost 2, grows up, I don't want him to say, wow, my mom was a fantastic teacher. I want him to say that I'm a great mom and I'm passionate about everything I do. I work a total of 3 jobs. That's right, 3, to make ends meet. At night, I lie awake thinking about how many bills I have left to pay, are we out of diapers, and if I will have more than $50 in my bank account to last me until next paycheck. But that's not the only thing I think about. I also lie awake thinking about whether or not Johnny passes math tests and how I can make Sarah grow from a kindergarten level to a 3rd grade reading level in just 1 year. I think about whether or not Adam had enough to eat at school because he may not get dinner. And I worry about the emotions of the children in my class who are in foster care and how I can help them enjoy school so they never give up. I wonder if there was anything else I should have done to prepare for tomorrow's class. I recently graduated with my master's in educational leadership. I've invested a lot of time into the career that I chose because I'm passionate about it. I dive headfirst into any school I'm a part of. I'm a teacher leader at my school. I run the school advisory council, and I help in every single way that I can. I see myself working in the educational field for a long time. A smart man once said, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. I love my job. And if you ask any teacher why they do it, they will never say for the money. They do it because they love it, they have passion, and it's for the kids. We're worth more than a 1% raise, and we're worth to have knowledge that we'll have a job next year.
Thank you, Michelle.
Hello, I'm Ginger Powell. I'm from Cocoa Beach, and I work 2 jobs also. And I'm here to tell you about my friend Molly Von Oppen. Everyone has a friend or a colleague, someone they work with, somebody that they really admire and look up to. And for me, that person was Molly. She was a Fulbright scholar, she had a master's degree, she was an international baccalaureate trainer, and she would always take time, personal days, to go do the training for that because our school wouldn't give her time. And she was somebody who went above and beyond all the time. And she was the person I would go to whenever I needed a better idea, a better way to do something, a way to make things fun for the kids, a game that I could come up with, or even just somebody to proofread a worksheet to make sure I had everything perfect. She was the person that I always went to. When I was a personal project supervisor for her students, I would get beautiful handwritten thank you notes from them because they'd seen her write thank you notes. When her students had IB tests, she would come in the morning and she would make pancake breakfast for them with sausage, which was a big deal because she was a vegetarian. She hated cooking that, but she would do it for them. But after 10 years at Cocoa Beach, Molly decided what a lot of other teachers have decided, that she couldn't afford to retire on a starting teacher's salary. And she did what so many other amazing teachers are doing, and she left. And I've seen my best colleagues leave the district and the profession because, like me, they've spent 14 years on a starting teacher's salary. They're sick, they're exhausted, and they're demoralized. And so I'm here to ask for your support because we need you to fight for us to keep the great teachers here, the ones that inspire students and the ones that inspire all of us before they leave. We need the raises that we deserve, but we need the colleagues, the great colleagues that we should have here. Because if you want an outstanding school district, you want outstanding teachers, you want outstanding students, you need outstanding teachers, and you have to find ways to keep them here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Darcy, as you approach, I'm just going to call the next three real quick, okay? John Michael, John Newton, and Christina Tomazos.
Hi, I'm Darcy Halloran, the music teacher at Pinewood. I teach 7 general music classes a day, and I also instruct the 5th and 6th grade string orchestra, chorus, orphan percussion club, and I'm the co-sponsor of our honor society, and I'm the union rep for our school. At my first job in Pennsylvania, my mentor told me the importance of joining the union and informed me that he had to go on strike several times in his career. He said it was unpleasant and he wished I would never have to experience that. And while we don't strike in Florida, there are times we have to voice our concerns as teachers. In recent news, it sounds like the board is disappointed that teachers are unhappy with the current offer. One must understand that we've been struggling since the economy collapsed a decade ago. Any small raise we have had has been consumed by our increased health care cost. Teachers work hard to budget on their fixed incomes while paying student loans. But it is the hiccups in life, such as car troubles, veterinary or health bills, and home repairs that strain us. Some have fled because they cannot afford a secure life at Brevard schools. Our BPS leader came here at a turbulent time and has worked very hard to make our day-to-day life more livable by eliminating the PGP and streamlining our evaluation system, and that is greatly appreciated. Improvements have been made, but we must also take care of our current employees before hiring new positions. Some of the proposed incentives would benefit our students, but shouldn't come at the cost of compensating the current high-performing staff. Everyone should understand that the state bonuses exclude many valuable teachers and guidance counselors. Our media specialist is a very hard worker and helps students with their books during lunch and teaches 7 classes a day and runs the news and manages our yearbook. In the state bonus, she and other valuable teachers would not be eligible. We desperately need to reevaluate our priorities, and we have survived this long without an armored vehicle. I am inspired by my colleagues. I love my job. We all work hard and do more than what is required, and that is because of our love of our students, families, and communities we serve. Our teachers are there early, late, and work on weekends. And this summer, a parent asked if we get paid extra for going in on the weekends. And I said I wish, because those hours would add up. We put in extra hours working on field trips, fundraisers, procurement, writing grants, participating in parades and community events. These are things we don't have to do, but we choose to do to enhance our school programs. We have been silent and patient for a decade, but that has not helped or changed our situation. The cost of living and healthcare have skyrocketed, and our pay cannot keep up with the pace. We often call our students our babies. We cannot put our babies first if we put teachers last. Teachers are right there on the front lines with the students. And what becomes of our babies who want to go to school to be a teacher? Will they come back in 4 years to Brevard schools? How will they be treated and compensated? And how will they be inspired to stay? Sometimes teachers feel like they are holding students up out of the mud while they are sinking in it. When jobs were cut and schools were closed, the students at our school didn't even know. The teachers and parents were exhausted from attending school board meetings, but our students remained safe and content in our classrooms, protected from what was going on in the county. Teachers work hard to protect the students and put them first. Please help us help them. Teachers do not go into this profession to be rich. We'd just like some money left after paying bills for emergencies and to be able to take care of our families.
Thank you, Darcy. John Merkel? Michael?
Meikle.
Meikle?
It's
Sorry,
okay.
John.
It's a strange Scottish name. I've heard some pretty heartfelt stories up here today, and I want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the future going forward, a little bit different tact. I appreciate everything I've heard here from the community. Many of you may be aware, the community may be aware, they may not, but there's an economic renaissance happening right now here in Brevard County. Incredible, exciting things are happening in engineering, manufacturing, and technology coming to this county. I work for Sierra Nevada Corporation. I'm a director, one of the leadership here locally. I live here in Brevard County. I really enjoy it. I picked this place to move and help our company grow here. I have to say, there's amazing things happening in terms of economic growth. SpaceX, you all are familiar with Blue Origin, my company that builds the Dream Chaser, which is a really cool drone mini space shuttle that's going to be docking with the International Space Station here in a couple years when we launch. We have XCore, and we have OneWeb, and we have all these really great companies, and these are commercial companies, companies that aren't 100% reliant on the government, and coming in a new way, in a new space industry that's really, in the entire world space industry now is worth about $320 billion in the market space. It's a large space, it's an exciting space, and companies like ours are coming down here to build a relationship with the community. And at the end of the day, we're looking to pull kids from this area to be part of that workforce. A really exciting workforce that's really the next generation, 21st century workforce that's carrying us in the future. So I have to say I was a little bit surprised a couple weeks ago when I got a notice that we'd been, the community that I chose to build in was being looked at as possible being rezoned to a different school. Without getting into a whole bunch of different details and comments there, it allowed or gave me the opportunity to come in and meet with many board members and talk to the community and some principals and other folks involved with the zoning committees. And I didn't realize how many constraints you guys have. It seemed a little strange that we have all this economic growth in the last couple of years, and it's accelerating into the future over the next 30 years. It's very exciting. And so I was surprised to see the school district maybe not in alignment with that growth. So what I'd like to propose is I'd like to volunteer to start a committee to get industry involvement in helping to plan with the schools, to help with the rezoning, to help with revenue shortfalls, and see if we can get the community with the businesses that are coming here, they're very excited to be here, to get more involved with what you're doing and help work through some of those constraints. I'm a big fan of increased teacher pay, and I'm also a big fan of coming up with a comprehensive plan that really respects the parents in terms of the choices they made of where they live and where the school boundaries are. So I'd like to volunteer myself to work with you all to move forward the best way that we can.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Dr. Blackburn and members.
Give me
of
1
this-
second, John. Sorry. I'm trying to catch up, and I don't want to short you on your time. John Newton. And then, John, after you, we have Christina Tomaso, Sheila Scherf, and Chris Graham. Go ahead, sir. I apologize.
Hi, I'm John Newton. Good evening, Dr. Blackburn, members of the school board. I'm here as a local businessman, real estate developer, 10-year Scoutmaster, and parent of 2 children who've come through the Brevard County school system. I also happen to come through my latter years of the Brevard County school system. I came here to talk about this proposed redistricting, but listening here for the last hour or so, there's a couple issues here tonight that are pretty darn important. Our children are our greatest natural resource, our greatest national resource as well. We live in Brevard County, the most exciting high-tech area of the country. Listen to what Mr. Meekel's talking about. He's just talking about the tip of the iceberg. This county is going places. But while our mean wage in Brevard County is probably the top tier for the state of Florida, I'm amazed to find out and saddened to find out that the salaries of our educators are 47th in the country. That is appalling. That is absolutely appalling. And to all the teachers here, for myself and for my children, I thank you. You know, we've gone places into doing things based on the education we received here in Brevard County. And it wasn't without great teachers. My best mentors in life are my teachers. The second thing I'm here to talk about is this proposed redistricting. I'm here against this proposed redistricting. I followed both Brian Williams, who spoke earlier, and John Meekel, who've expressed incredibly important points. I strongly concur with their comments and like to add a few. First of all, I'd like to urge you to stop what you're doing. Work on a better plan, one that is long-term and considers the real growth in this county. There are things happening to the west of 95 that don't seem to be being considered in all the things that you're doing. They should be. Number 2, build a middle school or 2 in the Suntree Riviera, Pineda area. Make that middle school serve the grades 6 through 8. That you'll open up the capacity in those elementary schools that seem to be overburdened. It'll free up all sorts of opportunities and flexibility. Number 4, get with these high-tech companies, get them involved, both with the educational system to help develop the curriculum that will ensure these kids have the greatest paying jobs they could possibly have coming out of our school system here in Brevard County. Also get with these companies that are coming here in droves, bringing millions of dollars to invest in our community, and perhaps entice them to make contributions to this system financially to help better pay our teachers so they can build the minds of the future for whatever we do. But whatever you do it with a lot more and considerable thought and planning to the future. Our future is really where it is here in Brevard County. Without that kind of long-term strategic planning, we're never going to get there. And don't draw arbitrary boundaries that disrupt families and adversely affect residents who invested in their respective communities. That doesn't do anything but hurt everybody concerned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. First of all, I want to say I'm really nervous. My name is Christina Tomazos, and I live in the West Melbourne Landing subdivision. I wanted to say that I am a single mother. I have one child at Meadow Lane Primary and one child at Meadow Lane Intermediate, and I am an avid volunteer. The problem that I have with the proposed change is that our children will be going to school with children from K through 8th, and at 9 through 12, they're going to be split apart. My children have friends in right across the street, Stratford Point, Hammock Lakes. All their friends are that way. So at 9 through 12, they're going to be making new friends, going to a low C rated school, and they're going to have to make new friends. And I just have a really bad problem with that. And it's only a few subdivisions. You've left out West Melbourne Landings, you've left out Oak Grove, Tamarine, Coventry, Anna Lynn Manor, and also Manchester Lakes. I'm sure there's another way to go about this. There is, June Park. I saw the other proposals. I know that you guys have your recommended proposal on there, but the second one was June Park. June Park is actually closer to Heritage High School per the new parkway. So I would hope that you take that into consideration. It's hard to separate our children and bring them to a whole new high school in their prime years. It's going to take a lot out on them. I've spoken to my oldest daughter that is a straight A student, and it would be hard on her. She was a little bit devastated when I told her about the proposal. And my youngest one has, a couple of issues with a possible 504 plan. So I would hope that we would try to work on keeping our community together rather than splitting them all apart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sheila Scherf, and I'm an ESE resource teacher at Gulfview Elementary. There's an old saying that charity begins at home. Every year, teachers have to fight for their raises. Currently, during the United Way campaign, which Dr. Blackburn is the 2017-18 chairperson, we were asked to give from every paycheck. The spokesperson informed us that Dr. Blackburn was looking for 100% participation from BPS employees. United Way provides benefits for people who make more money than we do. Every year, Brevard County Schools host dress down days, giving us the opportunity to wear jeans if we donate at least $5 for a specific charity: SPCA, breast cancer, Alzheimer, Sturgeon Weber's, and other charities. Finding a cure for Alzheimer's is very dear to my heart, since my mother has been an Alzheimer patient for the past 6 years. I've watched her go from a very outgoing woman at 72 to a 78-year-old baby who doesn't talk, feed herself, and needs someone to change her diaper. But the proposed raise would be barely enough to put gas in my gas tank every 2 weeks, and certainly not enough to wear jeans to support a charity. Rethink the proposed raise. Teachers are given comp time for open house, conference nights, and other after-school hour events. Are we supposed to get excited about that? Comp time has limits to when it can be used. Once again, we are required to be on campus for open house and conference night, but we don't get paid for it. Start giving back to the professionals who continue to work for free. Rethink the proposed raise. My contracted schedule is 7 to 3 every day. Students arrive at 7:45 and are in class by 8 o'clock. I spend the first hour of my day writing IEPs, progress reports, or updating my schedule for the 8th time. I work at a Title I school as an ESE resource teacher. When the bell rings, my day starts, pushing into 6 classrooms. With a caseload of 27 students, I move between 2 buildings with 1 to 2 minutes between classes. My planning time is spent in meetings, IEPs, catching up on paperwork and emails. At the end of the day, 2:30, I have 30 minutes left in my day. There hasn't been a day this year that I was able to leave at 3 o'clock. So once again, more unpaid time because my students' IEP minutes, over 4,000 weekly, don't allow me time during the day to get things done. Rethink the proposed raise. Teachers are the lifeblood of our schools. We give every day time, dedication, and money. My current position, I spend $300 to $400 on my students. This is above the teacher lead money the state gives me. I make sure they always have school supplies when their parents can't afford
Sheila,
them.
I hate to interrupt you, but your time is up. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I have Chris Graham, Latardra Fuller, and Jim Jeffrey to wrap up our speakers.
Hi there. Ironically, I didn't know the teacher raises were on the docket tonight. I empathize with all the teachers because I was a teacher for 2 years, and I actually was first-year teacher of the year when I taught, and I got out after 2 years because of the bad pay. So I hope you guys can make the cuts. And side note, we do make a lot more in the private sector, so you're all, you can come over if you need to. So thank you for giving us this forum to speak. I wanted to talk about the zoning if I could. When my wife and I got married and we started having our children, we actually were proactive with our realtor in deciding where we were going to move for the schools that we were going to go to. So we chose West Melbourne, and we live in the Oak Grove subdivision. And I think it's the new proposal, F2. It still doesn't include Oak Grove, but we did move here for this reason because we wanted our kids to go to Meadow Lane Central and Mel High. I know you guys are faced with a hard decision, and I very much empathize. But when I sat down, I noticed the mission statement above your head, and I thought it was really telling. And I know you all try to abide by this, but the mission is to serve every student with excellence as the standard. And I think if we're going to honor that, please serve my student by not moving my student from an A high school to a C high school. I just don't think that's a very moral thing to do. We can't in good conscience, move my kid from an area that we moved to on purpose to get him into that school to go to somewhere else, I think. Just a couple of suggestions. Maybe you guys have already thought of them, but I was thinking maybe we could table the high school redistricting until Palm Bay High is an A school. And then we don't really have an argument against you because we're just moving from an A school to an A school. Portables, in Mel High would be better than concrete walls at Palm Bay High because it's the teachers and it's the education that we're looking for, not so much the building itself. So don't think us parents are opposed to portables. We'd be fine with that if we could keep the zoning as close to make it, as much as it is. When I was a teacher in another county, I think they reduced the busing budget. They had a really bad habit in this county of busing kids from one city to the next, and they would put 5-year-olds on a bus for 45 minutes with 12-year-olds. That's not the best situation for the kid, but it also can save the county a lot of money, so maybe you don't have to redistrict, or maybe you could pay for the portables with that. And then the last thing is, I'm not sure if the official cutoff for West Melbourne is Dairy Road, but kind of the unofficial is. Maybe you could make the Dairy Road cutoff, but this lady had a wonderful suggestion, which I thought was a good one. I know we think of things as squares and everything, but maybe carve it out in a special way if you could, just to make sure that kids aren't being moved from A schools to C schools. But I do empathize with your situation and dilemma. I hope you can make the cuts for the teachers, and just thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, I'm short. Hello. Originally, my name is Latadra Fuller. Good evening to everyone. I originally came with a different mentality and mindset on what I was going to talk about, and then I sat here and listened to all this. The first thing I was actually going to express, which I expressed when Dr. Blackburn came to Gulfview. I have students at Gulfview, and I keep hearing about these A schools and C schools, and our school is a D school. And my first issue was one of the reasons our school is a D school is because of all the issues that have taken place with administration and leaders. And my issue was that we were never communicated with. And now that we actually have a resolve and we have an answer in Ms. Hudson, then we find out that this Eureka program comes into play. And one of the things that I said to Dr. Blackburn when he was there is that when you make a decision to implement a program and take parents out of the picture, you already have issues and problems. But now that I've been sitting here for an hour, I'm now over an hour listening to everything I've heard. I basically heard that if you took the teachers out and now you're taking the parents out. And I don't know how we as a county is supposed to move forward in making sure that every school in this county is an A school if both teachers and parents are removed from the equation. I'm a parent that believes in helping my children. I want success for them. I want them to be the best that they can be. But when my child comes home and says, I don't understand, and I'm looking at what's going on, I'm trying to figure out how many parents is on this board or how many parents make this decision, because what parent don't want to help their child succeed? So how do you make a decision to put something or implement something knowing that this teaching has not happened in Brevard County, and then believe that we're going to come from a D school to what? And then there's still tests that has to go on? I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I need to revamp what I'm doing, because I've been out at Golfview and I've been talking to teachers about what we need to do to help to better our children and to help them pass these tests. And now I'm finding out that we need to really halt everything on this board and make sure our teachers are taken care of, and then put our parents back in position to be successful in teaching our children by, number one, getting after-school programs that pays our teachers, two, going back to basic phonics with our teachers, explaining and teaching to the parents. And I'm sitting here saying I need to speak these things and ask them to do these things, but now I'm thinking, how in the world are they going to do that? They don't get paid. And better yet, how are we going to learn if they can't teach us? Because we can't use the education that we have, because that's been taken away from us. So I believe if you're a parent on this board and you've raised children or you're raising children, I think sometimes we got to step out of our position, because we're only in position because who we are, and go back and think about who I am. Then come back to your position and make better decisions, because you're in a position for a time such as this, and that's to better this county. And you can't better a county with all kind of programs and no teachers being paid and parents not being able to be a part of the learning of their children.
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us this evening. Jim Jeffrey.
Here we go. My name's Jim Jeffrey. I spoke to you guys last month too. Same topic, but a little bit different approach this time. I'm going to start out by just making a statement, and then I'll show why. I'm using the actual October 2016 and October 2017 enrollment figures that are now in. There is absolutely no need for any redistricting at this point from Melbourne High School students to Palm Bay. Probably won't be for several years. If I use a straight line interpolation of those two data points, which is apparently what your facilities group used to do theirs, instead of going up in enrollment, it went down. And if I extrapolate that line out in a straight line, the same way they apparently did to get where they did for all your F1 and F2 predictions, what I find is that we'll actually, instead of having 87 fewer students at Melbourne High this year, which we did, we're actually going to have 200 and, where did it get down here? I'm trying to skip through this and do it a little quicker. Yeah, it'll be about 261 students by October of 2020. So basically what we're saying is you don't even need to make any district changes between Palm Bay and Melbourne. Melbourne is not, at this point, overextended. They're not full. And that's your own facilities projections. They stated it was going to be up. It's not. It went down. It's a matter of fact at this point. So basically what we're saying, if your facilities can't accurately predict this decrease that did happen, where are we to get off thinking they're going to be able to predict there would be an increase at this point or a decrease? They don't really know. And I think that's where we are at this point. So what we're suggesting is that this board simply put this thing on the back burner for another 12 months and restudy the entire issue. Obviously, your data is flawed that you base these decisions on, and we don't see the point in going through all this at this point. And I think to kind of finish it off, and this became from when I was going around collecting various petition signatures. Frankly, if you guys go ahead and pursue redistricting this thing anyway based on this flawed data, we will be hiring an attorney to try to stop this action and postpone it until you've had a chance to re-look at all these data points. So as long as they're bad, I don't see how you can base any of your decisions on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey. Okay, the board wishes to thank this evening's speakers. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. Did any board members need to request follow-up on any of the speakers' comments this evening? Mr. Ziegler.
There was a speaker that was speaking about a program I've never heard of, a RECO program. Can we get some
Eureka Math.
It's a Eureka, can we get some
program.
information as to why they think that doesn't include parent involvement? I didn't follow that, so I'd like some more information.
I think perhaps the suggestion there would be for Ms. Fuller to connect with Ms. Klein in the back of the room. If you can see, she's raising her hand back there. And then Ms. Klein can perhaps follow up with the board on any additional information we need. Any additional requests for follow-up from speakers this evening? Okay. Then that brings us to the consent agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 17 agenda items under this category.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Does any board member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items as presented.
Move to approve consent?
Second.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Mr. Susan to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. All right, I have a request from fellow board members to take a quick 5-minute recess. 5 minutes. That is 5 minutes, not 7, 5 minutes.
2.
And we are back in session. That brings us to the action agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 5 items for your consideration. The first one is item G27 on the 10-year capital allocation plan. Before you vote, I would like to invite Mrs. Penny Zerker, Chief Financial Officer, to present some information to us.
Ms. Zerker.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Blackburn. We want to go over and talk about our new process that we put in place for the capital allocation of our capital funds. It was a new process that we put in utilizing best practices from both the private and public sector in determining projects to be funded. First thing we did was create a new capital allocation request form. This form included the project description and justification for doing the project, both capital and operating costs. In the operating, we asked for startup costs as well as recurring. We looked at, were revenues going to be generated from this program, or was there some cost savings to be acquired? And from that, we did a financial analysis looking at internal rate of returns, net present values, and payback periods. We also had cabinet approval for the division that was coming to ensure that there was support from the leadership in the division for the project. We set up a new capital allocation committee. This committee's purpose was to evaluate each request on its own merits. They were not comparing one to the other, but just looking at the individual request and its merits. They met in the sunshine, and they worked weekly through the month of August 2017. And the membership was made up of representatives from each division of the district, as well as the community. We had Mr. Gary Schifrin, who is the chairman of the ICOC, the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee for the sales surtax, who sat on this committee with us. The committee got together. The first thing they did in their first couple of meetings was develop a matrix of priorities to rank each project on. They determined that the factors they wanted to consider was the safety, health, and security that would be affecting both our students and our employees, any legal requirements that needed to be met, student capacity, adequate student stations to educate all of our students, keeping any existing programs going so that we meet their needs, any upgrades or retrofits to buildings, structures, equipment, or our vehicles, any future initiatives or programs we may want to bring to the district. Each of those, the committee was able to rate 0 through 10. They did feel like there was a need to have a special consideration category, although not listed on this particular form, that they could give up to an additional 10 points to if they felt that the program or the request was important enough, but due to it not being a safety or legal mandate, may not rank as high as others. Once they had completed this form, they sent it back out to the requesters and asked them to individually rank their own request on these factors. The committee then had the requesters come in and present over a 3-week period their request, what they were trying to do, why it was good, and why they evaluated it the way they did. It was a really great process. They pushed back not only on the presenter, but on each other for why we were selecting and making the decisions we were. We had some really great discussion on the merits of projects. In some cases, the committee ranked them less points in an area than the requester, and in a lot of cases, they actually raised those points and said, we don't think you're giving it enough consideration. It was a very robust process. Out of those meetings, at the end of it, we came out with a list of requests ranked from highest to lowest, with the highest points given being 60 and the lowest 30. They did give about 12 of the projects extra consideration points, and we thanked them at that point for their service and they stepped out of the picture. From this point, we just looked at our allocation and working with the presentations and the rankings, we came up with an allocation as can be seen here. Unfortunately, we only had $21 million to spread amongst $30 million of projects. The first thing we did was look at the 4 on the bottom that did not receive any funding at all. 2 of them were not considered critical for this year. The field trip software was deemed could be purchased out of their operating budget. And as Project 2018, this was holding money that was just going to be held for a year, and it was deemed that with an $8 million swing, almost 9, that was difficult to set $1 million aside at this point. We know the board is committed to this project, and so we could move forward. From that, we looked at the remainder projects and allocated based on need and trying to make sure that the main emphasis of the project was able to be done. The next thing we did was take this and put it into a revised format for our capital allocation plan. We wanted to be sure and go ahead and separate this out into the capital outlay funding priorities so it was clear for anyone looking at our plan what we were intending to spend the money on. The first is our sales surtax, and that revenue as it comes in is spent on the attachment F projects from the sales surtax referendum. The second is the impact fees. The majority of those monies are being held for building 2 new elementary schools, so those funds are falling into our fund balance as reserve and savings for those new schools. Our capital outlay in debt service and our public education capital outlay, commonly known as PICO, are funds that the district receives to do various maintenance projects as well as to acquire, build, and construct or alter. Those monies go to designated projects that fit within those parameters given by the state. The biggest one that we spent the most time on in the capital allocation is our local capital improvement or our capital outlay tax, the ad valorem. And in this plan, we have set in the current year all of the fundings that were shown in the previous slides. One thing that we did slightly different here is we looked at the funding as it was coming in. And when we looked at revenue, we have some conservative revenue increases on our local capital due to our property tax values. And we can see that we're going to be gaining some additional funds there. If I can direct your attention to the planned expenditures, the first line underneath that, which is our transfer to debt service. This is our debt service payment. And as you can see, for the next 10 years, it is relatively flat, $37 to $38 million, which is something the district structured its debt so that we had a flat payment, always could be paid for with no question. But at the same time, as you can see in the line above that, there are funds in excess, in some cases, more than double the funding for the debt service. So that's going to allow us to put more towards our capital. In doing so, we've also planned out into the future. And so I would direct you down to the capital renewal line, which currently is planned to fund $6 million and $5 million, $6.5 million. But as we move out into 2021-22 through the end of the 10 years, 2026-27, we see enough capital in order to begin taking care of our own needs by the end of the 2020s. So we're actually setting those funds aside to handle that in our plan. The same with our bus replacement. Currently, we're putting in about $4 million this year due to funding of regional choice busing. We've got $1.05 million, but by the end of the term, we're putting $5 million in regularly. The same with our educational technology. This year, it's about 2.2. We're looking towards the last half of this of being able to fund at least $3.3 million for those funds. The last thing I would point out is towards our ending fund balance. We're maintaining roughly a $5 million fund balance. It's 8 to 10% of our incoming revenues in order to have money for any contingencies or emergency situations that come. Lastly is just a summary that goes with the previous 2 pages to show the total outcomes of our planned capital outlay program going forward. Working with the team in both the allocation, facility services, technology, and transportation, we're all feeling pretty good about the direction we're going in all of our needs, and that within the next 10 years we will be funding not sufficiently to where we need to be, but we'll have made a big dent going forward. And at this time, I would hope that I would like the board to consider the approval of the 10-year capital outlay plan.
One quick question for you, Ms. Zerker, and then I'll open it up for questions from the remaining board members as well. The projections that you have here are based primarily on an increase in property taxes, property values, right?
Correct.
Revenue from millage. It's probably the most succinct way to say it. We have had significant discussion about the tendency for our state legislature to roll back our tax rates so that we don't actually see an increase in the revenue from the capital millage. How does that practice factor into the projections that you have there?
To date, we haven't seen a rollback on our capital outlay tax. It has been strictly on our required local effort in the operating fund. If the legislature decides to go that direction, it will negatively impact the plan.
So this projection is based on status quo of not touching our 1.5 capital mill.
Correct.
Going forward. So
Correct.
we would just see the straight increase in revenue as we would if they had left our operating millage alone as well.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from any board members? Questions, comments, concerns? All right, then. Oh, Mr. Craig.
Sorry, Mr. You know I'd have to ask one.
Absolutely.
You know I'd have to ask one. You know I have to ask one question, sorry. And I think there might have been some email discussion about it, but I just want to make sure that I am clear on it. And it's not something you and I don't think have specifically talked about, but because it's not all under yours. But in light of our recent hurricane situation, right? So have we done projections with a fund balance of what you are recommending, right? Knowing what our insurance covers and our insurance deductible covers, at what point do we, how do I say it? There's a level of I hate to say destruction, but there's a level of inability to use facilities. And we can run several different scenarios, obviously. With that fund basis, is there like some sort of, crossover line where we lose these amount of facilities for this long? We don't have the fund balance to cover that deductible anymore, or to, the outside of deductible-wise. Obviously we have insurance that's going to cover it, but I just want to make sure that we have something in our back pocket that we know, so that when and if something really, really bad happens, we are prepared for it and we understand where that trigger is. You understand kind of where I'm going?
Yes, the deductible is $1 million per incident or occurrence. So we have more than enough in our fund balance to cover any deductible that would come. That being said, we may have to delay some projects to begin construction until the insurance pays out. But once the insurance paid out, we could finish and put anything back on the plan.
So the $1 million deductible is district-wide for every facility that we have, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, it includes like interior, exterior buildings, and I just want, because I don't know if it can, like football stadiums, all that type of stuff.
I don't have that detailed answer tonight, but I can get that for you.
Okay, I can't remember, I know Mark and I had that discussion a long time ago. I just want to make sure we continue to have that in our back pocket, not something that we have to, just get super, super granular on, but
When we
something that we
picked-
need to kind of understand.
When we set this, I consulted with both Mark Langdorf and Joanne Clark, my Director of Accounting, to ensure we were keeping a safe fund balance.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else have comments or questions for Ms. Zerker on capital budget? All right, then I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Craig, moved by Mr. Craig and seconded by Mr. Susan to approve the 10-year capital allocation plan for 2017-2018 as presented by staff. Any additional discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn,
The next one is item G28 on purchasing solicitations.
what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Mr. Craig to approve item G28, purchasing solicitations. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
On the applicant tracking software, I have a few questions. First comment is this was late on the agenda, which I think we're overly sensitive to, especially on software, although we did have some foresight that this was in the budget. My concern is, and Dr. Kent fairly well answered my question, but I have a bit of a follow-up. The board, if you all recall, gave direction on wanting to asking Dr. Blackburn to focus on retention. Not that applicants are not important, but obviously if we have a bunch of vacancies, we're not getting, obviously, a ton of great applicants. I had asked a question, and Dr. Kent, unfortunately, I'm not clear by the answer. I asked if this software is capable of tracking and analyzing retention of employees so that we can fulfill Dr. Blackburn can fulfill the request of the board. And the answer was, as for retention, this product will allow us to run queries on metrics on retention. I just want to clarify, does that mean that as part of this application that you're proposing, you will be entering in all the employee information and tracking separation data aside from applicant data?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. That's good to know. And then you said that I had asked a question about discipline tracking. There's an additional charge for that, so we could upgrade to that if we felt that was necessary. Do you have any idea what the ballpark on that is?
Yes, it's 39,000, actually plus 3,000, 42,000 to get started, and then it's a maintenance of 29,000 a year.
On top of what we're proposing?
Correct.
Okay, so that's no quick decision then. All right.
No,
thank you.
we're doing that in-house.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Any additional discussion from any board members on the item? All right, I have a motion and a second, so please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn?
Next is item G29 on department school-initiated agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Mr. Ziegler to approve item G29. Is there any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn?
We move on to item G30 on the termination of campus charter school contract.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Mr. Craig to approve the termination of campus charter. Is there any discussion? Please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn?
Item G31 is to hold a public hearing and approve the amended BPS 5517.01, bullying and harassment policy.
The public hearing to approve the amendments to School Policy 5517.01 is declared open. Does anyone wish to address the board regarding the School Policy 5517.01? As there are no other persons wishing to address the board regarding the proposed amendments to School Board Policy 5517.01, I now declare the public hearing portion of this meeting concluded. I would like to ask the wishes of the board.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Mr. Ziegler to approve the recommended changes to School Policy 5517.01. Any discussion?
No.
Please vote. Are we good? All right. We will now move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and will be brought back for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Blackburn?
Mrs. Belford, there and members of the board, there are 2 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss any item on the information agenda? Okay. We are now at the board member reports and discussion point section. In addition to discussion points, I request that board members please include any information requests to be placed on board assigned tasks during this time as well. I will open the floor to my peers. Mr. Susan?
I wanted to first off say that Mr. Jeffrey's numbers were correct in the fact that 2017, 2018, we were at 2304 for the enrollment of Melbourne High School. We estimated that they would be 2,300, and then at the 6-day count this year, they were at 2,255. Which means they did at the 6-day count lower. Then also in October of this year, we just got the numbers back at 2217. So it's significantly decreased by 87. Also, if you look at the fact that we're getting ready to rezone that north end, minus the 56 kids, plus the kids that aren't in dual enrollment, you start bringing it way down below the 91%, closer to 90% of capacity. So I did want to verify what he was saying. I also had some zone proposals, sending 17 kids to Sea Park to Suntree, 13 kids from Longleaf to St. Andrews, 68 kids from Sherwood to Deer Lakes, 72 from Palm Shores, Creel zones to Sherwood. All of those who came from the community, have been endorsed by all the elected officials inside those zones, Melbourne and Palm Shores. It reduces the transportation by estimates by our transportation department, said close to 4 bus runs and mileage, which is about $227,000. And it creates community schools with all the natural boundaries. Worked really hard with staff to develop that, and I wanted to make sure that that was in. And what ended up happening is that because we wanted to host a meeting on November 1st for best and final for all of them, that was going to prepare it for the committee on November 2nd to look at, there was no opportunity for any of these to be discussed, along with a lot of other proposals, which are the K through 8 instead of the elementary school, moving 6th grade into middle school and building a middle school in Viera as opposed to the other. These are all proposals that weren't being looked at. And I think when we listen to a lot of the constituents inside our community, that's what they're calling for is a look. Now the problem we have is that if we do look at November 1st and push it, we only have November 21st as the next board meeting. And then there's only one in December, and then there's only one in January. So I would like to propose us sitting down, push the November 1st deadline back, have a board committee, a board workshop where we look at all of these proposals and send them to staff to have ready for us at that board workshop.
So Dr. Blackburn, what I'm hearing is perhaps we need a little bit more time to flesh out the details of each of these.
Agreed.
So I believe the request that I'm hearing from the team, Mr. Craig, you want to comment?
I'd like to add on to that if I could, before you summarize.
Okay, go right ahead.
Sorry.
Quite all right.
Well, I agree with what Mr. Susan said, and obviously you threw out a bunch of numbers, and you know, to me those are kids, and I can't process that like just sitting here. So I understand that, you know, we would have to go through and look at all those. The whole process, and first of all, I have to just thank Sue, Han, and Dane, and Dave, because they're doing exactly what the board asked, was to, we said, hey, look, we can't afford new schools like tomorrow, so tell us what we can do. And so they brought forward their best recommendations. And so I just want to make sure that your team understands that we appreciate that. And we've had that discussion even when you weren't there at a retreat, because we know that it's not easy, and we know it takes time out of your schedule for what you do daily, which is managing the facilities of this district. And so the constant, hey, can we check this, can we check this, and your team has been nothing but forthright in trying to jump on it and bring us numbers as quick as you can, so I appreciate that. That being said, as much as Mr. Susan said he'd like it, we push back a little bit of time, I've done some reflection over the last few days, weeks, because as I am in a district where really none of this affects the people in my district. We represent the entire county, and I take that very seriously. And I started to hearken back to, as I started getting some emails and thoughts and concerns from various people across the county, whether they were affected or not. Some of them didn't even have children. The thing that it brought to mind was, this feels very similar to something that I and my family went through back in 2013, which was the possibility of school closures, which is, well, not redistricting, and some could say it's worse than redistricting. I would say that it's probably very similar, because it's upheaval of families, it's upheaval of children in the midst of school years, trying to figure out what's going to go on for the next year. So I know firsthand what that feeling is like. I also remember that there was a group of us from my children's school, they were both there at the time at Gardendale, that came to the board and came to the district and said, hey, look, we're a bunch of business people and different backgrounds and stuff, and we've got different processes, and maybe we can look at some of the data and look at the way you came to decide where these schools fit into the closure matrix. Certainly we understand that there are business rules and business decisions that need to be made. We'd like to maybe understand it a little bit and maybe add see if we can help out a little bit, maybe bring a different perspective to it. And at that time we were told, thanks, but no thanks. Now that we are in a similar situation and we have people that are stepping up going, hey, I'm a business guy, or I'm a developer, or I'm a real estate person, we may have some other solutions, or we may have, could you give us some time to sit down with you and look at it and bring some different perspective to it? I think it would be hypocritical for me to say thanks but no thanks, because that was the way I was treated. And so I would much rather, and in fact emphatically ask that the board considers accepting that assistance from the people that have volunteered and seeking out more outside of just a one-day committee that is, in our policy, and it's great to have that community input, it's to discuss exactly what's on the plate, rather than coming up with new solutions or looking at a long-term solution that may work, utilizing some of the things that Mr. Susan said, some of the things that people have said, some of the things that our own staff have said. And so I don't see that, looking at the numbers, that there is this burning issue that if we wait another year and really put a thought and effort into it, that the world is going to collapse and that kids are not going to have a place to go to school. I just don't see that happening. It was the same thing that when school closures happened. The rush to get it done is sometimes self-imposed. Sometimes it is because the board is putting pressure, and certainly I will take responsibility for that, because I think we were like, look, we need a different solution. We can't just build schools, so give us that solution. And so where I come from is that I would like to accept the community's help. I would like to stand up that more than one day group, that task force, that tiger team that can go in and utilize the professional assets that we have in the district and the way that they can look at things objectively from a business standpoint and start to bring us some solutions that may include things we've already talked about or may be completely different as well. And that's kind of where I stand.
I'll come to you in just one second, Mr. Ziegler. I agree with you on all of that, Mr. Craig. So my request, however, will be that we go ahead and schedule a workshop so we have more opportunity to speak about this in more depth. Because my concern is that there may be areas where we do need to begin the process of taking action for next year, and there may be areas where we can look at it and say we can hold off on this for a year to see how change impacts those things. But what I don't want to do, and I don't think this is what you were recommending, but I just want to clarify, what I don't want to do is pull back and say, okay, we're dropping all boundary change recommendations, and then find that we're in a real pickle someplace for next year. So I would like the opportunity for the board, superintendent, and staff to at least sit down and look at what we have in front of us and then develop a plan going forward that could incorporate those community supports that you're referencing, as well as the recommendations from Mr. Susan, so that we can just get a solid look at where are we at this point, since our projections have come out, since our student counts have come out, since the recommendations came forward, and that would give us an opportunity to really kind of digest all of the information and determine, is there a burning building right now or not? Would my fellow peers be amenable to that solution?
Agreed.
Ms. Deskovich.
I agree 100%. I just wanted to take a second, though, to thank the community members, because we've heard from many, many people in the West Melbourne area, and for myself now in the Beachside area. But tonight, I've heard specific offerings of solutions and community members willing to step up and partner with us, and that's what it's going to take to solve these problems. And because of that, we're able to meet with you, go to a workshop, and come up with solutions. And although we appreciate input from everyone, I personally appreciate more when someone comes forward with offering some ideas and solutions. So I just wanted to make sure I got that in. Thank you.
Great input, Ms. Deskovich. Mr. Ziegler.
Thank you, Mr. Craig, for realizing some of the challenges of the past and recognizing some of the shortfalls that we have the opportunity to correct. I was hoping that you were going to recognize that. And I want to give a quick little history of some of the challenges that I've been through that I hope we can change a little bit of the visionary process that I think we need to. When we did the school closures, I was really trying to find some reason, somebody to give me something in the future, visionary, to show why this was not a good idea, and I couldn't find that. And many meetings as I had in Titusville and with commissioners, and couldn't find it. In 2011, although backing up a little more, there was a series of boundary changes that came before the board that in discussions with staff, I was objecting to some Meadow Lane boundary changes because to me, it was evident it was going to create an overcrowding situation. And staff acknowledged that and said, well, let's discuss it because it's close up against the board meeting. Let's discuss it at the board meeting for the change. So pushing things back and taking time to revisit is very important to us getting this right. When it came to that board meeting, the board members were like, no, we're just going to accept staff recommendations up and down, and that's it. Within 2 years, staff came back and goes, oh, well, we're overcrowded. We need to reverse that decision on those schools like I had suggested, and we'll do it with grandfathering. Well, grandfathering projections showed that the utilization never would go below 100%. Didn't solve the problem. I made the hard decision and got the board to accept it that we need to reverse that in a very hard cut way without grandfathering to save Meadow Lane from serious overcrowding. Situations I just didn't like being in and shouldn't have been if we were more collaborative like we are here today on this board. Secondly, staff does a phenomenal job at solving a problem that's immediately in front of us. The calculations are very complicated, and they come up with solutions that serve a short-term immediate need. Mr. Craig, to go along something you say all the time, which you're always absolutely right with, but it's not always that easy to do, is we need to be more visionary looking out 5-10 years. And I don't think that our boundary changes always look out that far, and it's challenging to do because we use data that is supplied to us by the county and by municipalities on things that they know are on their plate and typically are on short range, out of the ground projects because they have to be in the planning and zoning through the permitting process for them to really be on our plate. And we have some of those in our vision right now. So I've dug into, spoke to developers to find out, and actually the city of Palm Bay, to find out what's looking down the road. And there are some big projects that are not far out of the ground. So remember this, Melbourne is being proposed to go down from where it is to about 77% utilization. Yet Bayside High, with a move from Heritage to Bayside, is going to bring us up to 85%. Yet there's tremendous growth that's projected in short order down in the Palm Bay area that's going to need capacity at Bayside. Makes no sense to bring a school where we know there's tremendous growth up to 85% and then a school down to 77% where there's going to be some growth but limited. Same deal at Heritage, although we haven't been able to get, as Dane very well put it, some of the data is not exactly stellar, very politically correct, nicely put. And that school, if we move the students over to it, will go up to 84%, yet once the Heritage Parkway opens up, there's going to be some tremendous growth there, although it's a little harder to put our hands on where that's at. And then, of course, we have the challenge, pushback from residents on Palm Bay, which we really know is a better school than it's labeled as, but obviously so there needs to be maybe some proving of its capabilities, and I believe that's on Dr. Blackburn's radar screen to see what we can do there. So with a little bit of boundary change on the north end as proposed to O'Galley, and the fact that there is in fact some declined enrollment in Mel High, I agree, John, there's no burning building here. We can hold off, especially on the southward movement, until we get a better grasp on all this massive growth down there to make sure we're not going to have to reverse. The one thing more painful than making the boundary change is reversing the boundary change. And I don't want us to go there. I did it before. I don't like that. I'd like to get a better handle on that, so I'm going to suggest that we look at a model that has no southward movement immediately in the Mel High map, so we get a better handle on that. But now, talking visionarily, I just want to, and I don't have specific numbers on this, but I want to give you a more long-term thought that I'd like you all to think about. And of course, I don't know if this is going to work because the numbers are very complicated. It's a very complicated calculation. So we have challenges in our elementary school in the West Melbourne and the Vieira area. And the proposal right now is to build elementary schools. Of course, that's nice, and some people are maybe excited about a new elementary school, but that means significant boundary changes to accommodate a new school because it's going to create a ripple effect in all the surrounding schools. Another painful process just to build a new elementary school. We all know that, and we've heard it tonight as a suggestion, of 6, 7, 8. I've been talking to principals and educators, and it's been very clear to me that 6th grade, as we know, is a middle school grade, and they all feel that it's better off in the middle school than in the elementary school. We've had some conversations at Central before, and we had some pushback by parents, which I think has weakened the desire to do 6, 7, 8 in Central or in the county. But the parents came after the meeting to me, the 3 primary objectors, and they said to me, well, if they know a year in advance that 5th grade is going to be going into 6th grade and middle, they wouldn't have a problem with it. Very reasonable request. And if we're looking to do more of a countywide 6, 7, 8, they wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. Not that 3 parents drive this, but they were good suggestions. So here's what I'm going to suggest we think about and maybe ask staff to analyze as a long-term visionary process. Build an addition at Central Middle School for 6th grade. take all the feeder sixth grades from the elementaries, put them there, 6, 7, 8, no boundary changes for elementary. Less expensive project than building an elementary school, which property for that is going to be challenging. We are showing, and we'll see within about a year if the trend continues in the Cocoa Beach school at declining numbers, we could move a little bit of the north boundary for Satellite and for Delora into the Cocoa Beach school. I said, we got to analyze the numbers, see if it really works. Look at building a middle school, 6, 7, 8 in Viera. Move all the elementary school boundaries, all the elementary feeders, sixth grade into that middle school, bring the Delora kids over, and free up space in the middle schools on the beach side for 6, 7, and 8. We can make a significant move towards that model if we are visionary and think longer term than solving a short-term problem. Now, I'm not suggesting we necessarily analyze that in time for this boundary change, but I think we have an opportunity to move to that model long-term if we don't jump too soon and make changes that make that move more difficult down the road. So right now, I'd like to see a Melbourne boundary map with no southern movement, and then us all think about, maybe discuss whether it's even practical to move to a 6, 7, 8 model and how much that could save us and how much we can minimize impact to children and families from boundary changes in elementary school.
I think those are all great suggestions for us to discuss at a workshop, Mr.
Absolutely.
Ziegler. I think we need to get some data together and have some stuff to look at in order to really be able to effectively discuss those items, would be my recommendation. Mr. Susan?
Yeah, the data that made us drive towards having that sixth grade in the past has changed. Elementary schools with above 750 kids are showing that the achievement levels are dropping. The sixth grades in most of these schools that are going 6, 7, and 8 are setting up individually off on the side so that they're their own quarantined area to reduce the risk and management of going in there. So there's a lot of positives moving towards that 6, 7, 8, so thank you. I know you want to push it. Let's go.
No, my only concern is, as I have said to you all earlier, the last thing that I want to do is make a decision on the fly, like Mr. Ziegler indicated happened in the past. So I just want to make sure that we have ample opportunity for thorough analysis and discussion and some information in front of
Absolutely.
us before we go too far down a rabbit hole, especially
you.
when the community's listening and thinking, oh my goodness, they're now going to move all of our sixth grades. So we're not going there yet. We're just having discussion.
Just something to analyze, looking for solutions to minimize impact, save money,
Absolutely.
go to a better model.
Much appreciated, Mr. Ziegler. So Dr. Blackburn, are you clear on direction? Do you need any clarity from?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, clarity would be great.
So it sounds like what we need to do is schedule a workshop for the board to have an opportunity to discuss the currently proposed boundary change plans, as well as potential alternatives to those boundary change plans, which may include a delay or looking at different configurations or any number of things. Request, of course, to the board is to, as soon as possible, get communication to staff as to what particular things they're looking at doing so that they can have that prepared for the workshop, so nobody's caught off guard. And that way we can have some thorough discussion. Thinking it's going to need to be a fairly lengthy workshop, though. Like, I don't think our typical 2-hour workshop is going to cut it. So if Pam and Tammy could maybe work together to find a time that we can carve out probably 4 hours, would be my guess. Mr. Craig?
That's all great. I still want to make sure that we're including the community. Again, my whole reluctance is the reflection of what happened to me and my family, and what made me, get interested in the school system as deep as I started to. We have people that are offering professional assistance, and I want to make sure that we figure out a way to include that, because it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. I think that would be a critical part of the conversation. I just want to make sure that we give ourselves an opportunity to dig through what's currently in our capital plan and ensure that we don't have any burning buildings that we need to shorten our timeline on, because we did already put that forward. So I just want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a bind to be unable to address a situation that's going to be problematic for kids. But certainly having the discussion about lengthening our timeline so we have an opportunity for that community input would be my vision.
The only thing I think that Dr. Blackburn might need guidance on is the November 2nd.
I was just going to suggest
task
we
force
address that.
meeting or community meeting.
I think that probably needs to be pushed, Dr. Blackburn.
I was going to
Until
suggest.
after our
since
workshop.
Part of the question, John, you made a comment about that evaluation committee having just one meeting and whether that is appropriate or not. Might it, and I agree, I think that they, if we're going to appoint them, that they should have a little bit of input because they're representing a large group of the community, number one. Number two, since I believe 6 of those members that are BPS employees of that evaluation committee will probably be part of our workshop, might we want to consider involving our appointees in that conversation at our workshop to kill a couple birds with one stone and give them an opportunity for input? I don't think we need an answer on that right now, but I want to suggest that as a way to work more closely with the community. So think about that, Mrs. Chairperson.
Dr. Blackburn, and I think Mr. Theodore is asking for an opportunity to speak as well.
Along the lines of what Mr. Ziegler just suggested, I am hearing from the board a yearn to have more community participation. As we all know right now, community members are able to sit with staff and suggest scenarios, which is good. But if we want more community input, that's great. Also, I would just ask for some direction on what we think that community input should look like. I heard one suggestion here, but what do we think that should look like?
Mr. Craig.
Sorry. So, a great question. So, yes, and that's what I wanted to start off, or why I started off with saying that Mr. Theodore has been awesome, taking community input, going out, we're listening to people. What I think I envision is that strategic thinking that Mr. Ziegler has mentioned, instead of picking apart individual plans, looking at a kind of holistic look at the district and how we address capacity issues from a bigger picture, from a business methodology, so that we have we have metrics that we step through to get there. Not that we don't now, but it doesn't mean that they're maybe either they're the same ones we've been using for years. Maybe there is a better methodology to look at how we do predictions, how we do probabilities, how we integrate with corporate entities. There are some outside the box thinkings that have been successful in other states that I think members or people in the business community that I've talked to are more than willing to present and show as examples on how we could possibly speed up timelines to build schools that relieve pressure on a much quicker basis. Some other infrastructure issues that might be available as well. So not to get in too far into it, but it's not a let's look at each one of these proposals. It's more of a bigger picture approach and a methodology to tackle a problem. It's high-level problem solving is kind of what I'm looking at, and I think that's really where I would like to see some of our business community get involved and have some buy-in, whether they have kids or not.
Mr. Theodore, did you want to?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm just looking for a bit of specific direction on the general meeting that is now scheduled for November 1st. which was intended to be a wrap-up meeting of all of the new proposals that have been generated from the community input. If we are going to have a board workshop sometime between now and the board meeting in November, I would, just like you've recommended delaying the evaluation committee, I would ask that we delay that that community meeting until you've had your workshop, because some of those proposals may not go forward.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So is that then, for all practical purposes, a complete pause until we have this workshop?
At this time, given the board's direction, that would be my recommendation.
That's great. And you don't foresee any negative impact by a complete pause until we're able to have this big picture workshop conversation?
We could always have the community meeting and receive additional input, but we have some proposals out there that may or may not change as a result of the board workshop. I'm simply looking for direction. We can have the meeting, it is scheduled.
It seems to me like we should probably pause on that community meeting. There's been a lot of shift since we were able to come together as a team before and talk about the details of all of it, input from the various community meetings. So I feel like we probably need to get a status update and figure out where we are, and then figure out how to go forward from there, would be my suggestion.
So what I'm hearing, I just want to repeat it to Mr. Theodore, a complete pause on that meeting, whatever else we're doing, to create an opportunity for this big picture thinking workshop with the board, and then we'll take it up from there. Whatever that workshop yields, we'll pick back up the process from that point. Everything else is at a halt for right now. Does that sound right from the board?
Yes.
That is my perception. Do any of my peers disagree? Excellent.
Any negative impact by a pause right now, Mr. Theodore?
No, sir.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Theodore.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up that particular discussion item. Is there any other board discussion item that needs to come forward at this point? Dr. Blackburn, do you have anything else to discuss with the board? There being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.